What's up, guys? Today I'm joined by my co-host once again on another Tuesday night, Randon McMahon. How you doing today, Randon? Football's back. It's officially week 1. I mean, Thursday is Bills versus Rams. I mean, how can you not be excited? Like, football is back.
I'm all over all my fantasy teams right now. I'm seeing getting the Thursday players in their starting lineup. Great matchup with the Rams. I admittedly drafted way too many Rams on my fantasy team, but how could you not like Cooper Kupp and the potential steal of Allen Robinson in the 6th round? So as much as I can separate the real football with the fantasy football. The high flying Rams should be fun to watch, and I have Josh Allen in my family league team as my keeper for like the last 4 seasons. So I'm excited about the Bills. How about you, man? Football's ready to come.
Football's back. I mean, I'm only playing one fantasy league this year. My draft was last week also. Feel pretty confident about my team. I got pretty good running backs. I got Michael Carter, Najee. I got Aaron Jones. I got Josh Jacobs. I got pretty good depth at running back. I picked Justin Herbert. Got him as my quarterback. Put Justin Fields on the bench. And then I got some pretty good receivers. I mean, can't complain. Got DK, Tyler Lockett. Who else did I got on my receivers? I drafted Robert Woods late. I got him late. Like, I mean, I'm happy with my fantasy team. I feel like I got a pretty good shot. So I'm excited for this football season and this fantasy football season.
Now, obviously, the fantasy football season, you got to have some cool names for your team. Like I always do that. I try to get a team inspired name by a player, right? So, do you have a special name for your team? Like, have you thought
This
of
year,
something?
this year is Brandon Ayukin, like the
Brandon Ayukin. Okay,
Brandon
all right.
Ayukin.
All right. So I have in one of my leagues, I have Derrick Henry. So I have King Henry's Court, like King Arthur, right? Because they call him King Henry. So I have that one. I have Obi-Wan Kenobi,
That's
which
good. That's
is
clever.
Saquon, right? So, and then I'm debating on my last one. I have Chase and Javonte Williams in this league. So I was thinking chasing some serious tail, chasing some women, or Javante's Inferno, based on the book there. So I got a couple of names cooking in the burner there.
I like that. I like that. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. I
Let's do
mean,
it.
let's do it. So, something that came out this week or like a couple of weeks ago, you could say, where we obviously this was a discussion about Brady. He was available a couple of years ago. He wanted out of New England. There were some teams that were thrown around. A lot of people were talking about the Niners, but the main 2 teams were Tampa Bay and then the Chargers. He instead chose Tampa Bay. Obviously, won a Super Bowl with them, beat the Chiefs. But then the question was asked, like, why not the Niners go and get Tom Brady? What was the reason? Why wouldn't they go after Tom Brady? And this was after Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niners team made it to the Super Bowl and had that amazing run. Fast forward to 2022, a couple weeks before the season starts, there was this report that came out that stated that Kyle Shanahan actually wanted Tom Brady, but the people in the organization talked him out of it and said, no, don't do it. So are you buying this report at all? Do you think the organization actually talked Kyle Shanahan out of wanting Tom Brady?
So I think a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about tonight is just clickbait in general. Just because the Niners are one of the most storied franchises, you're going to get a lot of clickbait going on. Trey Lance is probably the hottest hashtag in all of sports right now. So anything involving him in that kind of thing. For me, because this article also talked about Mac Jones, right? He was talked out of multiple quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I don't buy it because if he really wanted Tom Brady and then the organization said no, and then you watch Tom Brady go on to win a Super Bowl in Tampa, do you really think the organization is going to talk him out of Mac Jones? Like at that point, because he'd be like, hey, you guys effed up. I was right. You were wrong. And we should have got Tom Brady. Give me the quarterback that I want. Like, I just don't think those two correlate. And talk out of it seems to me as like a very harsh term, right? Like, I think the open communication between the organizations is pretty high. It seems pretty high. Him and Lynch seem to have a good relationship. So they weigh the pros and cons. Sure. Like how could you not want Tom Brady over Jimmy Garoppolo? But the money. Okay, what do we do with Jimmy? Like, obviously, you bring in Tom, like, you need to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. So, is there a market for him at that point? Sure, there probably is because he just went to a Super Bowl. But is it you get like we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo and like the amount that they're asking for him was a second round pick. Like they're after the Super Bowl run, they're probably asking for a first and more, right? So they able to get that kind of return on Jimmy Garoppolo. Like all those things have to factor in. Sure, I'm sure he wanted Tom Brady. Like who wouldn't want Tom Brady? Like you at least got to poke your nose in it, right? But who in the organization is talking him out of it? And ultimately, if he's the dynamo that everybody in our sphere, our realm thinks he is, and has that much pull in the team, if he wants a guy, I'm sure he's going to get it for the most part.
Yeah. Okay, please
I know that was a long diatribe,
Yeah.
so dissect that what you will. But
Yeah, I completely disagree with it. I think this is clickbait as well. I mean, first off, we know Tom Brady. We know legend, one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. Was even after he left New England, he had somewhat of a down year, but he made it to the Super Bowl the year before that and the year before that. Tom Brady's Tom Brady. We know that. But to say that the organization talked Kyle Shanahan out of wanting Tom Brady, who doesn't want Tom Brady? If you have an ability or you're able to get Tom Brady and Tom Brady is available, who's gonna say no to that, right? But the thing is, I don't think necessarily Kyle Shanahan was not to say that he wasn't interested, but I don't think Kyle Shanahan was actually gonna go and get Tom Brady. But to say that Kyle
why
Shanahan,
not?
huh?
Why don't you think he would have went out and got Tom Brady?
I think he would have if he wanted to, but at the same time, I think he looked at it from Jimmy Garoppolo won the Super Jimmy Garoppolo was a quarterback when he made it to the Super Bowl, and I think he looked at it from either it would have been he didn't either have been too much he didn't want to pay Brady maybe they didn't want to pay Brady or it might have looked at it from Jimmy Garoppolo after coming off that Super Bowl run. I think they were fine with keeping and sticking with him for another year.
So I'm going to be straight honest. I was like, yeah, let's roll with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like he's younger. Like let's keep our franchise intact. He just went to the Super Bowl. Like his playoff stats were decent. Like at least I thought, like we were a couple throws away from winning. Yeah, I was butthurt. And in hindsight, it's 2020, right? Like, are we really having this conversation if Tom Brady didn't win with the Bucs? Like, are we really having this conversation at all with that? No, probably not. So, like, hindsight's 2020. And he threw for over I think 5,000 yards that season. So sure. But he's the outlier, right? Like there's not many players or quarterbacks over the age of 40 like hucking the football like he is, right? Like eventually his arm is going to just disintegrate. Like I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year or if he's going to play till he's 50, but eventually that's going to come up. And most quarterbacks don't play over 40. It's like all the stats and all like the data for quarterbacks were against Tom Brady at that point, right? So like I don't blame the Niners for that. If Shanahan really wanted Brady and the organization said, "Hey, let's keep Jimmy. He's younger. We just got to the Super Bowl." You can make arguments both ways, but I think the only reason that this is even a topic is because the Bucs won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, let's think about it, right? Tom Brady with that 2020 49ers team. Do you think Tom Brady would have won a Super Bowl with that 2020 Niners team that was depleted with injuries?
So we were almost a playoff team at that point. And I think that we had enough offensive weapons to where he would have got more out of the offense. Maybe not necessarily been a Super Bowl team, but he definitely would have got us to the playoffs.
I agree with that. I think he would have made us to taken us to the playoffs, and I think he would have, as the quarterback, obviously, he can make up for the injuries. He can make up for the injuries on the offense, but I think it might be a little bit too much to say that with that injury-riddled team that the Niners could have won a Super Bowl with Brady.
I think we're the first or second most injury-riddled team that season. But let's keep going down this rabbit hole here, right? So if 2020 comes around, the Niners are that injured, and we make the playoffs with all those injuries because of Tom Brady, don't you think he's going to be re-signed? And then could you imagine that? Could you imagine the team last year with Tom Brady?
We would have won the Super Bowl
because they wouldn't have drafted Trey Lance.
Yeah.
They would have used that top 12 pick or wherever we would have drafted, even top 20 pick on a corner or on somewhere else. Like, no offense to Shavarius Ward, because I like our team this year, but could you imagine Patrick Surtain and Emmanuel Mosley under rookie contracts, and then what other money you could have spent elsewhere to solidify this team? Like that, like your offensive line would have been legit. Like you could have went out and got a top 10 center. Like you
Yeah.
could have went out and got all these players. So I really like what that hypothetical could have been like, but this is our team now, like, and all these stories of arm fatigue and Brady would have went on this guy is just clickbait, because right now there's no actual news. Like the Niners haven't played it down. So like, obviously these writers have to write stuff, and I don't blame them, because that's their job. Like, we're talking about it, aren't we?
Hmm.
So like, I don't blame them, but realistically, like, it's in the past at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, if Kyle Shanahan really did want Tom Brady, I think if it worked out and they were able to move on from Jimmy G or whatever it might have been, I think Kyle Shanahan probably would have gotten Brady, or at least would have made an attempt for Brady. But I don't believe that the organization talked him out of it, because even like going and getting a guy like CJ Beathard, that was Kyle Shanahan's pick, and Kyle Shanahan isn't the GM, and he's able to do. And he was able to draft CJ Beathard. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's the head coach of this team at the end of the day. Kyle Shanahan has a lot of power in the 49ers organization. So if there's something that he wants and it's reasonable and the Niners are able to do it, and if Kyle Shanahan wants to get it done, I think in certain situations it can get done, because Kyle Shanahan has that much power. And Kyle Shanahan, if he wants something, it can happen.
100% agree.
Moving on to another maybe clickbait topic of the day. Let's call it the clickbait show. The Amin and Randon clickbait show. But the second topic of today is Trey Lance was annoyed initially with keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. There was a report by Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated that initially he was a little bit annoyed when he found out that they were keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you buy this? Do you buy this, or do you sell this? You buy or sell? Buy or sell?
I think I buy it a little bit, right? Everybody has an ego or a pride or whatever. And right, like, you can't help but to think like, okay, Trey goes out there in the last preseason game, even though he was 7 for 11, he didn't look great in my opinion. Right. And then he's like, okay, I didn't look great. Now you're gonna restructure this guy's contract over one preseason game. Like, we're all adults. Like, everybody's mind goes into that, right? And as much as you want, like, Trey to be the guy that he was in a lot of the press conferences where he's like, I don't give an F about you guys or what you write or this. Like, maybe he does actually feel that way. But ultimately, you got to think that, hey, the team pumped me up all offseason, that this is my team, this is that. He knows he has zero leash with Sudfeld as his backup. Now, like, you can't assume that, right? The rest of the team's built to win. Like, I ultimately think it would be a wasted season to switch halfway through the season to Jimmy Garoppolo, because at what point are you giving up on your third round pick? Like, I think if you do that, you are giving up on Trey Lance ultimately for one
Yeah.
season. Now, whether they think that season is winnable with Jimmy Garoppolo at that point, like, I get it. I understand. Like, yeah, he never won a Super Bowl, but he was good enough to get us there a couple times, even though his playoff stats are garbage. But going back to that, yeah, he probably was a little bit butthurt. Like, yeah, he likes Jimmy Garoppolo, right? But like, ultimately, like, the small things like that can be a little annoyed. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with him being annoyed? Like, hey, this is supposed to be my team. He knows that a lot of the Niners have strong relationships with Jimmy. Like, yeah, sure, he could be a little butthurt about it. Trent Williams came out and said, hey, Jimmy's my boy. Like, I love Jimmy Garoppolo. Kittle's backed him up all his entire career. Juice has. So it's like, like, I understand that. But ultimately, I believe this is football. This is a pro team. I'm not worried about the locker room situation, even though Joe Staley came out today and said that, hey, like, he's kind of worried about it. But I think a lot of players know that they're going to back up whoever's under center, and they have zero control over roster configurations. If Shanahan wants Lance in there all season long, he's going to get that. If he wants to switch it to Jimmy, that's his decision. But it has nothing to do with the locker room, in my opinion. I don't think that Shanahan takes much guidance from his players on roster configuration. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I've never been in an NFL locker room, and that could be 100% wrong. But I know in all the high-level sports that I played, my head coach never asked me for lineup decisions. So, maybe it's different. I don't know. I really don't know, because my thing is, I would be a little bit annoyed, but is it really that big of an issue? Like if Trey goes out and balls week 1 and the first 6 games are pretty relatively easy outside the Rams and Broncos, if he's 4-2, are we really even talking about this? Like if we're not. So like he just got to go out there and handle his business because he's a starter.
Yeah, I mean, I buy this report a little bit because I think naturally, football aside, if you were taking over a team and the former quarterback of the team and you got drafted so high, you already have a lot of expectations. You're coming off a game against the Texans where you struggled a little bit, went 7 for 11, didn't throw an interception. So from the stats, it ain't horrible, but he obviously didn't have a great game. But obviously, I could see Trey Lance being a little bit annoyed because he's taking over a new team. He already has a lot of pressure, and then you're bringing back Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been here for multiple years, who a lot of the players in the locker room like. Of course, he might have been a little bit annoyed. Now, do I 100% know for sure? No, but at the same time, just being a human being as well, like, yeah, if I was Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo's brought back, and I'm taking over this team, of course, I would be annoyed a little bit. I would personally be annoyed a little bit. Now, do I think it'll impact the season? No, because I think a lot of these guys the whole team are a bunch of guys that are professionals and that know what they have to do and they take care of business. So, am I worried about it? No, but at the same time, do I buy this report a little bit because I think if I'm Trey Lance, I would be annoyed personally a little bit because I'm a quarterback. They traded up so much to get me, and bringing back a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, I would personally be a little bit annoyed. But like you said, I mean, Trey Lance has to go out there and prove himself. Now, do I think now having Jimmy Garoppolo on the bench, is it a shorter leash for him now that Jimmy Garoppolo's on the bench? I think he has a little bit of a shorter leash. Now, the reason why I'm saying that, not necessarily from the coaching standpoint, but I think from the fans and the media standpoint, I think if Trey Lance doesn't do well and Trey Lance struggles, the media will be coming at him. The media will be like, "Is Trey Lance a bust?" Whatever it might be. And then the fans, Niners fans aren't patient fans. They're impatient football fans. So
Yeah,
if Trey
for
Lance
sure.
goes out there and struggles and we lose to the Bears and we lose to Seattle at home or whatever it might be, they're going to be calling Jimmy Garoppolo's name because a lot of the fans still believe that Jimmy Garoppolo wins games. And Jimmy Garoppolo's a quarterback. When he is the quarterback, we win football games. That's just we know that now. I think it has to do a lot of different factors. I think obviously the team helps Jimmy Garoppolo out, but at the same time, when he is understanding, the Niners win, right? So, I mean, do I buy this report? I buy it a little bit because I think Trey Lance probably was a little bit annoyed, but at the same time, I think it also is kind of a benefit, like for Trey Lance, because I think having a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo can also help you. I mean, like the experiences, and if you have any questions or whatever, having a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo is also somewhat of a benefit because he can help you. But at the same time, I think Trey Lance definitely has a shorter leash from the fans and the media standpoint because if he does struggle, I think, you know what, since Jimmy Garoppolo is on the bench, they have a guy in Jimmy Garoppolo who can come in and be an insurance policy if Trey Lance struggles.
I also think that the fact that they're keeping Purdy on the 53 shows that they're still trying to trade him, right? If Purdy wasn't on the roster or the 53, then you maybe have like, hey, they're trying to keep Jimmy here all season, right? But ultimately, like I just equate it this way, right? You're out with the bar or on a restaurant with your girl, you've been dating her, and all of a sudden her ex shows up. And she goes over, chats him up a little bit. Like, yeah, you're gonna be a little bit annoyed. You might be a little bit upset, or you might feel a certain way about it. These players have emotions, and it's all right for him to be a little bit annoyed, right? But ultimately, is that going to affect his play? I don't think so. Like, he still needs to go out and prove himself. If Jimmy wasn't here and he lost the first game to the Bears, it wouldn't mean anything different because they both outcomes with Jimmy or without Jimmy would incite a little bit of a panic amongst most of the fan base, right? So, like, it's just that kind of thing. Yes, I do need a residency hat. I think those hats are sweet, but I'm just trying to match the local brewery shirt here, Celestial Brewing out here in DFW. And I just got back from vacation. I collect hats. From all the stadiums I go to, been to 27 out of 30. We just came back from Tampa and Miami, so collecting that swag. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think it's a huge deal, and he's got to prove himself regardless, right? If Jimmy wasn't here and this team misses the playoffs, like everybody's gonna be disappointed. So it doesn't really matter at that point.
Yeah, I think Trey Lance definitely has to prove himself. But the only thing, like I said, I think the difference with having Jimmy G is that there are pros, because if Jimmy Garoppolo's a veteran and he can help Trey Lance, and I mean Trey Lance said he learned from Jimmy Garoppolo last year, so I think that is a pro of keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. But obviously the con is that if Trey Lance does struggle, either way, without Jimmy or with Jimmy, I think if Trey Lance struggles, there will be some question marks. But if Trey Lance struggled without Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance probably would be the long-term starter over Brock Purdy or Nate Sudfeld. He would probably be the starter unless he got injured. If
Is
Jimmy
there
Garoppolo
another
wasn't here.
team? Is there another team in the league that has more help for Trey Lance than any other? Like you have Shanahan, you have Anthony Lynn, you have Bob Greasy, you have Kubiak, and now you have a starter who has played multiple seasons in Jimmy Garoppolo. You have Sudfeld, who is a career backup, but still has played against or played with a lot of really good head coach. Like, how much more help does Trey Lance need? Like, he's got a lot of help in there from the mental side of the football game to where he can lean on a lot of people for this. Like, ultimately, the season isn't a place for him to be worried about his mechanics or anything like that. He just got to play instinct football and throw the football. Like, that's not the time to work on your mechanics in mid-game. But there's a lot of mental stuff to the game. It's the most important position on the football field. It's the most scrutinized position. It's the most important position regarding team wins. As far as he dictates most of the offensive side of the football. It's just I think that he has the support system around him to be great.
Yep. I want to say what's up to the chat real quick. We have Pinor back in the chat. Haven't seen you all off season, Pinor. Glad to see you back. Hope you're having an average day. We got Cardcast, another 49er content creator. Go check out his channel. My amazing moderators, David, McNew, and Brian. Shout out to you guys for always tuning in. Appreciate your guys' support. I wanted to pull up one of David's comments. He said something about his fantasy team. He said Brian says my fantasy football team is Lynx. That's my middle name. Oh, it's like isn't there a WNBA team called the Lynx? I think, right? Minnesota Lynx. Yeah, there's a WNBA team called the Lynx.
Also, I mean, the dream saying that your fantasy team is like a WNBA basketball team compared to the rest of your league. He's just bashing you already. He didn't even see the roster.
That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean.
Yeah, you're bashing him already.
It just came to mind. It just came to mind. All right. It just came to mind. All right. It is a cool middle name. All right. I don't really got a middle name, but I mean, if I had a middle name, I mean that's a pretty cool middle name to have.
No, I like Lynx as a middle name. I think Lynx would be a cool first name too.
Yeah,
to be honest,
Lynx would be a cool first name. Moving on to the last clickbait topic of the day, the third and final clickbait topic of the day. Peter King. Peter King came out and said a day or two ago that he predicts the 49ers will bench Trey Lance by week 7. Now, if you don't mind, I would like to start this topic off.
Yeah, I've been ranting all night, so you go ahead and I'll let you diatribe. Let's listen up.
I'm sorry, but like, based off what, Peter King? Based off what are you saying that the 49ers are going to bench Trey Lance by week 7? You literally, and I found out today that Peter King has only been to one training camp out of all the off seasons, all the off season programs, rookie mini camp, OTAs. Trey Lance, Peter King has only been to one day of training camp. So based off what are you telling me that Trey Lance is gonna get benched by week 7? You're basing it off nothing. You're just speculating. It's honestly just speculating that you're speculating that he's gonna get benched by week 7 when you have no facts or evidence that supports your argument that he's gonna get benched. So, like, I'm not buying it. It's just speculation. I don't think he is gonna get benched. Now, if the offense is struggling or really, really mightily, and the offense can't get moving downfield, and the offense struggling mightily, or Trey Lance gets hurt for the season, yes, then maybe, you know what, Jimmy Garoppolo will be in there. If Trey Lance is out for the whole entire year due to a season-ending injury. But saying it this early, a couple of days before football season starts, based off nothing, and you haven't, all you're basing it off maybe is the reports, but even then you can't say that he's going to get benched week 7 and base it what's going to happen in the season. I mean, I'm not buying it. It's just speculation by Peter King, especially considering that he's only been to 1 day of training camp this whole offseason.
I 100% agree. I think it's something, to do with, obviously more clickbait stuff, but it's the season of premonitions, right? It's something to do with, oh, hey, my team is ranked here, power rankings there. It's nothing to do. There's really no fact involved with a lot of these predictions, right? Like, this is a very drastic one, and you look at the team last season, right? The team had a stacked roster as well. Team was on the verge of making the switch to Trey Lance permanently, and then they rattled off like 4, 5, 6, 7 wins or whatever right after Chicago. Like they were literally one screen pass away to Deebo Samuel from being beat in Chicago. Like you can see that. Like you could. Is there a world where that happens? Sure. But I don't think they make the switch to Jimmy. I don't think they make it, period, to be honest with you. I think that they've invested too much. They're keeping him there as an injury concern, because you saw on George Kittle's interview on the Sherman podcast that one of the worst fears of non QB players is that the fact that their season is one injury away from being done. Like 6 months of training, all this kind of stuff, going through camp. You get one injury to your prime quarterback and your season is over with. And now that the Niners have at least a backup plan that is, according to NFL officials, top 15 in the league on The Athletic, that's got to make your team feel good. And swinging this back to Peter King, sure. Like, I think maybe he has a bias against Lance. Maybe he feels that Jimmy Garoppolo is better than what the consensus is amongst people, or it's another clickbait thing. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter because Trey Lance controls his own future. And at this point, and if Trey Lance goes out there and puts his sack on the table and leads this team to multiple wins through the first 7 weeks, like if this team is 4-2, like he's not getting replaced.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Right. So and I'm saying 4-2 in the fact that we're losing the only 2 tough games in that schedule. Carolina's a little bit tough, but outside of that, are we really concerned about Chicago? Probably not. Are we concerned about Seattle? I don't think so. Are we concerned about Atlanta? No. So that's 3 wins. So let's just say 3 wins. If we're 3-3, are they really making this switch? I don't think they are. This team would have to be 1-5 to even consider that.
Yeah.
And they would have to be bad losses.
Yeah.
They'd have to be really, Lance would have to have 3 touchdowns and 9, 10 picks. It would have to be atrocious football for this to happen.
Yep. I want to say what's up to Rick Diaz real quick. Haven't seen you in the chat before, so I appreciate you for tapping in. He says, I'm on YouTube, gentlemen. Trey will be okay. Sunday, he knows what he has to do is play better. He knows that the offer is not going to give him time to throw the ball. The offensive line, I think he means the offensive line is not going to give him time to throw the ball.
So I take exception to this because playmakers make plays all the time, and playmakers often lead the league in sacks. You look at in most of the last 3 years, the team that dominated the NFC West for a long time, Russell Wilson almost is top 5 in sacks every single season. Patrick Mahomes is high in sacks because they're trying to extend the play. Trey Lance is going to do the same thing. Niners fans have to be okay with the sacks on the offensive line. Now, if he is hesitant in the short throws and can't even get those off, that's when you start talking about, hey, the offensive line really controls that. But realistically, Patrick Mahomes, he threw 50 touchdowns by saying, hey, my first read isn't there. I'm scrambling and playing schoolyard football. If Trey Lance is able to make those kind of plays on the run and do all those kind of things, and this team looks good, we're going to win football games. There's going to be sacks. There's going to be negative plays because he's going to try to extend the play with his legs. It is what it is. He's not going to dissect a defense. And if you think that every quarterback should be able to do that right away, then I would urge you to see one of the best cerebral dissectors of a defense, and Peyton Manning still has the NFL rookie record for interceptions in his first season. Like, the NFL is a difficult game.
Watch Peyton Manning's early years. Peyton Manning's early years were not pretty.
So, like, it really is what it is. So, like, I was debating this guy on Twitter before I came on here about wins and all this kind of stuff. Hey, what's going on, Camper Report? Yes, would love to come back on whenever you have a chance. I was debating this guy. Obviously, I don't think wins are a QB stat, but I think the quarterback has the biggest influence on that stat. But we saw it. Like, Jimmy played almost mediocre, if not horrible, football for the first 8 games of 2019, and we went 8-0 because we made key plays. The defense was good and the run game was good. So yeah, there's a possibility of that. But you flip it to the other side. Like, for a decade, the AFC was run through 3 quarterbacks, and those guys were Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
So good quarterback play can make up for the bad rest of your team, but your team has to be elite in every other facet of the football to make up for piss poor quarterback play. And I don't, we're going to see what it is there, but I think this team would have to go at least, 1-5 to have this even be remotely in the conversation. But and Trey Lance would have to be garbage.
Yeah, Trey Lance would have to struggle mightily to make the switch.
And I just don't see it with the schedule, right? Bears have a bottom 3 roster.
We should beat the Bears. We should beat Seattle. Denver is 50-50. That's a toss-up game. The Rams, that's a toss-up game. Could go either way. Carolina, that you could say is one of the more difficult games, I could say, but that's also a game that the Niners are probably
It should be winnable.
But
they had a top defense for some of the season, and their quarterback play was absolutely garbage. So if Baker Mayfield is adequate, then they win games. My thing is this: like, 3 of the 6 teams are absolutely dog crap. Like, we should roll over those teams. So even if we're 3-3, we're not making this move. Like, it just really doesn't seem like plausible. Like, he must think so little of Trey Lance for this to be even a discussion, or it's just pure clickbait because he has nothing else to write at that point.
Yeah. Well, obviously week 1 is here. We know it's week 1. What are your keys to the game? What do you think the Niners have to do in order to win this football game?
Well, you look at the Bears only have a few weapons on this team, right? They lost a lot of interior defensive linemen. A lot of people don't know that the Bears, I think, were top 5, I think top 8 in sacks last season. So their defense got after the quarterback. Well, they lost a couple of defensive linemen. Their defense got worse. They didn't really replace those guys. Roquan Smith is unhappy. Their offense got worse. They lost Allen Robinson, even though he didn't do anything with Justin Fields last season. But they literally have 3 options on offense. They don't really have a defense. So, like, I think it's just really control the line of scrimmage. Like, we should be able to run the football on them, limit, David Montgomery in the run game, hopefully, and make Justin Fields beat you. Now, obviously, he showed he could make all those trick plays against us last season. And that he did that against a couple teams, but you make a team one-dimensional, and I think our secondary is a lot better this season, that you could double Mooney and really put Fred Warner on Cole Kmet. Like, where are they throwing the football at that point? Like, they're not. So it's just, like, I just think you really have to. I saw this videotape of Bill Belichick going up to Chad Ochocinco and just being like, "Hey, we're doubling you all game.
Doubling you all game." Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, "Really, coach? Are you doing that?" He goes, "Yeah. Like, you guys don't like, you don't. Yeah, I'm not going to let you beat us." And I think the Niners have to do that. They can't let Mooney, who is a burner, beat them deep. And ultimately, I think that the Niners will have enough run stop in that game to control the team all year, like, or all game. Obviously, Fields will have his plays because he's an athletic quarterback who's able to think on the run. But over the course of a game, if you stop Mooney, that you win the football game at that point.
Yeah. Offensively, having a good, efficient run game, being able to control the line of scrimmage, and having, like, kind of what the Jimmy offense was. At least the first week. I think we might see 1 or 2 deep shots, but just being able to run the football effectively, controlling the line of scrimmage, I think If we're able to do that offensively and have a good run game going and being able to pick up yards on the ground, I think the Niners offense will have a good day, and I think the Niners offense will be successful. Defensively, I mean, the Bears offensive line is not good. And Justin Fields, if they want to win this game, has to play hero ball. Literally has to like pretty much carry the Bears team because the offensive line is not good. Literally, the only weapon that they have is Darnell Mooney. You mentioned it. The only weapon they have is Darnell Mooney.
I
Otherwise,
like Cole Kmet. I like Cole Kmet.
And Cole Kmet. Outside of that, like I don't even know who their wide receiver 2 or 3 are.
Well, Dante Pettis was wide receiver 7 on their depth chart. So watch out for him. Revenge game.
Revenge game. I mean, the Niners should double team Dante Pettis. That's what they should be doing. That's what they should be focused on. Double team Dante Pettis. Put one guy on Darnell Mooney and forget the rest. You got to double team Dante Pettis. But defensively, I mean, the Niners, I mean, I think they'll have a pretty easy time because I mean that offensive line isn't the greatest. This Niners defensive line is super talented. One of the biggest strengths, if not the biggest strength of their team. They have a bunch of depth at that position. The Niners defense is going to eat, especially that D line. It's going to eat. It's going to get to the quarterback. Now, will Justin Fields have his moments in the game? I think Justin Fields will have his moments like he did last year on that 4th and 1, and he'll have some spectacular plays or like beating a Niners pass rusher because he's mobile. He's able to extend plays, and it's harder to stop a mobile quarterback than it is or neutralize a mobile quarterback than it is to neutralize a pocket passer or someone who isn't as mobile. And we've seen that throughout the Niners' time, like with Kyler Murray's and Russell Wilson's. It's harder for them to get to after the quarterback or neutralize the quarterback. Now, Justin Fields, just because of the situation that he's in, I think it's going to be a little bit harder for Justin Fields than it is for like a Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray. But Justin Fields really has to do a lot if the Bears want to win this game, and I don't see the Niners defense allowing them to do that because this Niners defense, I think, is going to dominate.
I think the fact that the Niners have started slow, like week 1, almost every single week. I mean, they played the Lions and they came out and dominated, but they let that Lions team back into it.
Yeah.
You could say that, oh, that was backups and this and that, but you let the team back into the game, and the Lions were trash. So, like, they need to come out, step on the throat of the Bears, and finish this game early. Like, you can't. They let so many teams back in the game last year.
So it's not just me. So it's not just me observing that. Because I've always said this, and like not that I've always said this, but like I've always seen it throughout Niners games, and even like with 2019, is that there'll be times when Niners have leads going into this first half, and then the other team makes a comeback, the Niners get some drives, but they're not always able to finish, and then the other team gets back in the game, and then you get into the fourth quarter, and it's like a 21-21 game, and some games the Niners pull it off, and the Niners get like a win by a field goal, and in other games the Niners lose by a field goal, like Seattle Monday Night Football. That game was the opposite. That game, Seattle had the lead, or Seattle and them going back and forth. Seattle pulled away a little bit. The Niners made a comeback, and then obviously the missed field goals. But there's been games where, like, for example, that Green Bay game, Monday Night Football, and that was with CJ Beathard. So I'm not gonna really like go too much in depth within that game. But the Niners had the lead. The Packers made the comeback, obviously with Aaron Rodgers, and that defense had some injuries. They made the comeback, and the Niners end up losing. So like I'm glad someone else is noticing it besides me. It doesn't happen always, but it sometimes happens where the Niners will have a big lead going into the first half. They'll be lead by 10 or 14, and then going into like the fourth quarter, it'll be like a tie game, or it'll be like a touchdown differential game, and the Rams will have the ball, the other team will have the ball.
I just think the fact that Shanahan wants to run the football. So when they're up, they're going to run the football. But when you run the football like on 1st and 2nd down and it's 3rd and 7, like that's not a high completion for the first down. It's just not. And so I think that the team gets a lot of 3 and outs or those types of things in the second half. Now that just might be my, me being hurt by a lot of these late losses or these late comebacks, but it just feels that way. And I think Shanahan needs to have more of a killer instinct and not continue to dial up. Because sometimes I feel like he just goes, well, I don't want to show too much my playbook. We're up by 14. Like, let's just go vanilla. And I'm like, no, like take out your blade and slit the effing throat of the Bears, and let's put this game away in the 3rd quarter. Like, let's put Brock Purdy in there he's probably not going to suit up, but let's get it going, For all the Jimmy heads out there, let's let him play the fourth quarter. We're up by 30. Like, who cares? Like, at that point, like, that's what I want on Sunday. Now, it's supposed to be supposedly 60% chance of rain, chance of winds up to 14, 17 miles an hour. So this might be a dogfight more than we think. This might just be a battle in the trenches. And even with that, I love our chances because our trenches are way, way more bullish than theirs.
Yep. This is another topic, but we kind of discussed it a little bit about Justin Fields and how he wants payback against the 49ers for not drafting him. I mean,
I just feel this just Justin Fields like he felt like he was catfished. Like he was getting texts from some other coach besides Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Like, yeah, I mean, he probably thought he deserved to be the third overall pick, right? I mean, let's think about Justin Fields for a second. 5-star recruit. He was easily the number 2 quarterback in the nation behind Trevor Lawrence all season. And then, when the over analyzing eyes of these scouts and everybody comes in, like, you see a lot of late pushes for many players. And he's like, man, what the F? Like, I was the number 2 quarterback all year. I had a great season. I took my team against the highest competition very far. And now you're talking about me in the same mold as Zach Wilson, who went to BYU and they didn't play anybody, and Trey Lance. Like, this is garbage. Like, I should have been drafted in the top 3. Like, and he probably is looking at his own roster right now. Like, imagine, what could I do in San Francisco? Like, if I had a competent head coach, like, what could I do? So he's not the only one. Aaron Rodgers has been in the league over 20 years, and he still brings up how much he hates the fact that the Niners didn't draft him. Tom Brady felt butthurt. Like, it happens all the time. You have players saying, hey, I have 31 chips on my shoulder because all these teams passed over me multiple times. Like, it happens. It happens a lot. Like, he should feel slighted.
And he should want payback against the Niners. Yeah. I mean, naturally, when you think you're supposed to be going somewhere, and the year before that, Justin Fields was ranked as the number 2 quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. In a span of a year, Zach Wilson goes to number 2, and Justin Fields drops to either number 3 or beyond that. And people were having him at number 4. So, naturally, like, I agree with you. Naturally, if you're Justin Fields, of course you're going to be pissed off because, dude, I'm playing at Ohio State. I made it to the national championship game. Yes, I lost to Alabama, but Alabama's Alabama. And this kid from BYU, who's playing not the greatest, not competition that I'm playing, not even close to it, jumps all the way to the number 2 spot after one good year. Because realistically, Zach Wilson had only one amazing year. Otherwise, outside of that, Zach Wilson was just kind of average throughout his other college years. So, obviously, if I'm Justin Fields, I would be upset. And I would especially be upset and want to get payback on the Niners because he probably felt like he deserved to be on the Niners. There's obviously that not famous picture, but there's obviously that picture of Kyle Shanahan and him with each other. I think it's at Justin Fields' pro day at the camp, right? So, I mean, obviously, if I'm Justin Fields, of course I want payback. Of course I'm angry. And of course, if I was Justin Fields, of course, why wouldn't I want to be on the 49ers? The 49ers were arguably the best spot for any quarterback to get drafted because they had the most win now roster compared to the Jaguars or the Jets. And you could argue the second best place was the Patriots. But outside of that,
I just think that you're looking at him and like, why in his legacy, just for him as an athlete to come into week 1 as a pro athlete and David versus Goliath type thing and just come out and say, hey, like, let's dominate this. Like, any athlete would want to come out and win week 1. Exactly. And he would want revenge. Like, I don't like this should be a non-story. Like but because of the fact that the Niners are the clickbait capital of the NFL, it is a story. But you would want that to happen, right? Like, I don't know if there's an adequate comp on our roster, but like it for a quarterback, like he had the most to lose. He dropped so far. Like, he should have that kind of mentality. Like, you guys effed up.
Yeah, and then the Niners drafted Trey Lance. So
Yeah,
you think he's better than me? Let me go out and show you week 1. Yep, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I mean, Justin Fields, I don't know if he has a team for it. I mean, honestly, I feel bad for Justin Fields
I
because
want him to succeed, not in this
I
game, but
want
I
him to
want him to
succeed as
succeed
well. I
in
want
his
him to
career.
succeed. But honestly, I don't know what the hell Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus did this year. You didn't get any offensive line help. You didn't improve his weapons whatsoever. You kind of just addressed the defense a little bit, but the defense was stronger than your offense last year and the year before that. So, like, I mean, what did the Bears ownership and the management really do to help Justin Fields out this year? Not much. What,
No.
they drafted some like 6th or 7th round offensive linemen?
Now,
They really,
good thing for them. This class upcoming is high with a lot of quarterbacks. They're going to get some premium talent because they're probably going to draft anywhere in the top 5, top 6.
yeah.
And with the quarterback class the way it is, like they're going to get the number 1 or number 2 best non-quarterback in this draft, and they're going to be able to make a real impact with that team. And I'm sure take a wide receiver in the 2nd round to help Darnell Mooney out. Like year 3 for Justin Fields should be pretty good.
Yeah, it should be. And Brian Clough said Justin Fields was compared to Trevor going 1. At one point, I think he was compared to Trevor Lawrence, and that was just one conversation for almost a couple of months was Trevor versus Justin Fields.
Well, I don't think he was ever going to
I don't think he
be
was ever.
one
I don't ever think he
because
was gonna
Trevor
go number
Lawrence won the
1.
national.
Yeah,
Trevor Lawrence
I
won the
don't
national
think he was gonna.
championship.
I don't think there was any chance that he was gone number 1
No,
over Trevor Lawrence. But there was at one point where it wasn't any other quarterback outside of Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, and then a year later it was just Justin Fields and Zach Wilson story. We got SG Sports Talk says, "What's up, Amin, and what's up, Randon? What's up, Shardal? Hope you're doing well. Always faithful 24/7. Said it's going to be a great QB battle between Trey and Justin. It sure will, and I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, when you have 2 young guys in their 2nd year, it's going to be an interesting battle. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. And I love 10 o'clock games. I really wish every Niners game was 10 o'clock games because that now some Niners fans might disagree with me, but I love when a Niners game is at 10 o'clock, especially week 1, because like even last year, I was like, all right, I set my alarm to like whatever time I thought I was gonna wake up. So I set my alarm last year like at 10 o'clock. I was like, I'm gonna wake up and watch the first couple of games. I woke up like at 6:30 just naturally, and I went to bed like at 2 in the morning. Just naturally, I woke up at 6 o'clock because I was so excited for football that I couldn't sleep. So
Side
at least,
note, side note, straight pain for me right now. Matt Olson just hit a 3-run bomb against his previous team, the Oakland A's.
oh, that must
Straight,
have been
straight,
tough.
straight
Oh,
pain, straight
oh.
pain right now.
That's what he's probably like. He's probably talking to ownership right there. He's like, you guys shouldn't let me go. That's a mistake right there.
Oh man, thanks, Shardo. I appreciate it, man.
Cardall
Hope
says
you're
he likes
well.
your Miami Marlins hat. I like that Miami Marlins hat also. I mean, we talked about it backstage. Miami Marlins,
Spicy colors. They got some spicy colors, man. I love it.
the Miami Marlins, they have amazing uniforms. The black, the hat that you're wearing, the City Connect jerseys. They got the fire unis. They just don't have the
And
team.
their field is top notch.
Yeah.
I've been to 27 stadiums. Their field is top notch. Like they have good beer selection. They have one of the most unique food selections that I've seen. It's indoors, so you don't have to worry about the heat. It's like, and you can see the city in the background. Like it's one of the top stadiums I've been
All
to.
right.
Like,
What's your top 3 favorite baseball stadiums that you've been to?
in what category? Like overall for me,
All
like the
right, let's go.
game.
We can ask this every single week, but let's start off with food because I always love talking like food. Out of the top 3 baseball out of all the baseball stadiums you've been to, your top 3 that have the best food.
So obviously you can't try every single food option when you're at a stadium. So just the food options that I tried, Miami's up there in the top 3. Like I had a Cubano sandwich. I had, a good sausage dog. The best like dog or sausage that I had was at Wrigley. Now it wasn't a traditional hot dog. It was a buffalo sausage. They put blue cheese with buffalo sauce on top. It was almost like buffalo wings, but in a sausage form. It was dynamite. And then I'd have to say the other like top hot dog item was probably Boston. I just really, because I mean, it probably had to do with the fact that I was in the first row eating it, but but it was really good there. I don't like to give the Giants any pub, but they have some good food options there too. So
Please do tell. Do tell. I would love for you to. I would love for you to talk about the. the Giants. But
Um,
obviously,
one game, my buddy bought some crab cakes and he let me have one of the crab cakes. I think it was in center field when we went there in that little food area. I don't know if there's still a food area out there, but there was like 4 or 5 vendors out there, and the crab cakes were pretty good. Uh,
right.
my friend bought them. I didn't. I don't want to give
Thank
money to
you
that
for saying something
organization.
nice. Thank you for saying something nice about the Giants. Even though it's not specifically about the team, we always like when Randon is saying something nice about the Giants. I don't know, what can I say nice about the A's? Like I'm not trying to be mean, but like I mean their stadium is alright. Like I mean, hey, you guys had one of the best young infield cores in the last couple of
You're
years.
not old enough to drink, but
No.
the Oakland A's, the Coliseum is the dive bar of the MLB, and I love myself a dive bar. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the chat that love a good dive bar. Oakland Coliseum is the dive bar of the NFL or the MLB.
Interesting. I'm not allowed to drink. So I'm not even old enough. So yeah. But Randon, always faithful ass, or Mark asked, Randon, are you a Miami Heat fan?
No, I'm just wearing the hat. I'm not really a basketball fan, to be honest with you.
Oh.
Like I watch the playoffs, but I don't really have any rooting interest with the NBA.
Can you sit and watch through like what like if there's a baseball game on, will you watch the whole baseball game? Like I don't know. Like I've always found like if I'm at a game, I can enjoy it, but like when I can't like if there's something else on, I would like baseball would be my last option just sitting there watching it at home because it's like I've always felt like baseball, like some of the innings are just very uneventful.
So I watch. So tomorrow will be my day off from work. I'll watch the A's game when it's on, the whole game.
The whole game?
Like yeah, but I'll be doing other stuff. Like I'll be doing errands or I'll be podcast prepping because I'll be on tomorrow with between two beards and hockey royalty. So like I'll be doing prep and the game will be on. Although we are in Oakland, so the game will probably start when the podcast starts. So probably not tomorrow. But normally, if it's a day game, like we're on the East Coast, yeah, I'll watch the game. If it's boring at work, I'll throw it on my phone and just have it in the background. So like that's. But yeah, I can watch a full baseball game. But normally it's with like I'm doing other things. Like it's on, but I'm not like sitting there unencumbered watching a full baseball game.
Yeah. SG Sports Tech says, shout out to Grant Cohn. Shout out to Grant Cohn indeed. Bryant Club says Stockton Ports are the Ace Farm team.
They're the double A team, yeah. I think. No, they're the single A team.
Oh.
Because the double A team is in Midland and then triple A team is in Vegas. The best triple A stadium in triple A.
Triple A, don't they have like really nice custom uniforms? Or is that like I'm confusing that with something else?
No, AAA. It's like so. The River Cats in Sacramento were the AAA team for the A's for a long time. Then the Giants threw their money around and pushed, the little brother out of the way and took a hold of the River Cats. And so then we were in Nashville for a little bit, and now we're in Vegas, where Vegas built a custom baseball stadium just for the AAA team, and they sell out almost every single night. Like
That's nice.
yeah.
Moving on to the last couple of topics, or the last like big topic of the day. Season starts. We obviously saw the title of this video. We are Trey Lance days away from 49er football game. I want to get your season prediction, season awards. We're gonna have the season awards, and we're gonna go back to this at the end of the year, and we'll see who is right or who, if by the end of the year, if majority of us can agree, or we'll see what happens. But I just want to make some predictions, 49ers predictions, specifically 49ers season awards. And people in the chat, please do not be shy to participate with us. I'll put them up on the screen, and we will definitely take all your comments. Let's start off. MVP. Who do you think will be the most valuable player for the 49ers this season?
Nick Bosa. I just think the fact that he will have over 20 plus sacks, his win rate will be astronomical, and he'll have an Aaron Donald like impact on the defense to where like, and if the Niners defense is top 5, like I think, and he plays that well, he'll be the MVP of this team.
I'll go Trent Williams. Nick Bosa would probably be my defensive choice, but I'll go Trent Williams because I think without having Trent Williams on this offensive line would struggle mightily without Trent Williams. But having Trent Williams with a guy like having Trent Williams there, you're not worried about left tackle at all. Trent Williams is one of the best in the league, and I think I will go with him for my most valuable player. If you pick Nick Bosa on defense, even though Nick Bosa is an amazing choice, I'll go with Trent Williams on the offensive side. I think Trent Williams brings a lot to this offense, especially this offensive line, considering that we have a lot of young guys. So I'll go Trent Williams.
I like that a little bit. I think the fact that it's just there's no quantifiable stats with the offensive lineman, so
Yeah,
it's like
it's hard with the offensive line.
It's an opinion at that point, but yeah, he's definitely a top. I think he got snubbed at 14 for best player in the top
He
100.
definitely did. That's the thing I talked about it on the Camper Reports channel. Certain things I don't like about the top 100 is obviously I think there's some things that don't make sense. And one thing that specifically I think just sometimes is kind of stupid is that there'll be certain players that they'll put at certain spots based off like what they've done throughout their whole career and based off the consistency that they've shown. And then there'll be certain players where just based off what they did in 2022, they'll be ranked at a certain spot. So for example,
that's human thought.
I know that is, but at the same time,
right? If I say Tom Brady, you would say greatest of all time, but he wasn't the best quarterback last season.
Exactly,
but he was ranked higher than Josh Allen.
That's what I'm saying.
So
that's what I'm saying.
That's natural human thought. That's natural human thought to do that, right? If isn't the top 100 based off of player surveys, right?
Yeah, it based off player surveys. That's just something that I personally don't like. That certain people might disagree with me, but I think, like for example, like you mentioned, Tom Brady. He was really, really good. He played at a high level last year, but would you put him at number one? Who would you put at number one? If you based it just strictly out of all the players that were top out of 2022, who would you put at number one?
I don't know. I'd have to like really think about that. I didn't even think about that, to be honest. Like there is no player better at his position than Trent Williams, but does he deserve to be number one? No, he doesn't have the amount of impact on the team that quarterbacks do. So like you can weigh this any way you want to weigh it, but like I'm fine with it being previous and then the season. I think the only thing that I have a problem with it and the way that I would score it is that there's a lot of recency bias, right? Like Micah Parsons, like he had a phenomenal season last year.
He did.
Like, should he be rated that high over one season when like there's other players that have had multiple stack seasons? Probably not, but that's the way I would vote. But like, again, this is a player survey. Like not every player has to vote the way I would vote. Right. And like, this is just subjective rankings. Does the top 100 really like matter for the end of the season? No, it won't.
No, it doesn't.
But it's nice to know that the players that play against our team, like we had the second most in the top 100 of any roster. So that's got to make you feel good.
We had 7. Yeah, we had 7. That's a lot. Yeah.
We're only behind the Chargers, right?
Yeah, Chargers had 8. Chargers had a lot. JC Jackson, they had a lot. We have some people saying George Kittle. David McNew said Brandon Ayuk. SG Sports Talk says George Kittle. Those guys for most valuable player. I mean, I think Brandon Ayuk could have the most receiving yards this year with the 49ers.
Like to be an MVP, like Ayuk would have to have a Cooper Cup season.
Yeah.
And I don't see that happening. So
Nobody's Horse says what's up to you as well. Playing hooky from work. I remember we talked about Jimmy Garoppolo last week. I'm actually gonna go back. I'm gonna try to find that debate that you and Ryan had about Ryan Tannehill. I wanna go check that out. I wanna go see what that debate was like.
It was on 5 Guys in a Six Pack, I think.
Was it on your channel or was it on Nobody's Horse channel?
I don't know. It was somebody's channel because we rotate the channels.
All right, I gotta check that. I'm gonna try to find that because I'm interested to listen to that. But offensive rookie of the year. Who do you think offensive player of the year? I don't know why I went with offensive rookie. I mean offensive player of the year. Who do you think is gonna be offensive player of the year this year?
I think the easy pick is Trey Lance.
Yeah.
But I think with how much they want to run the football, and this is obviously assuming health, right? Then Elijah Mitchell. Like if they want to, like Elijah Mitchell was on pace for 1,500 yards last season. Like, and the second year in the league, you're going to have more space in the box. Like you're looking at, I think you're looking at if Elijah Mitchell, this is obviously assuming health, stays healthy, he's offensive player of the year. I think he goes for what 1,412 or 1,410. Like the only thing that really hindered him last season was injuries. And so we're assuming health in all these rankings. I think it's Elijah Mitchell outside of Trey Lance, because obviously quarterback is the most important position. But I think Elijah Mitchell could have the most dominant season because of our run game.
He could. Elijah Mitchell's a good one. I'll go with probably the obvious choice, was just Trey Lance. I'm confident in Trey Lance. I know maybe we'll see what happens with Trey Lance, but I think the obvious choice would probably be Trey Lance. So I'll go with Trey Lance. Moving on to defensive player of the year. Who do you think the defensive player of the year? We already talked about it. I think it's very simple. I think it's Nick Bosa. I don't really think much needs to be said here. I think you probably agree with me that it's going to be Nick Bosa.
Yeah, I would, but I would give another name. Like, I think the team needs it. Let's go. We think it's gonna be Nick Bosa, but what does the Niners team need it to be? Who does it need it to be? And I think that's Charvarius Ward.
I think
If
that's Charvarius Ward as well.
Charvarius Ward
Yeah.
can put up a season of 5, 6, 7 picks, like the turnover ratio for the Niners last season was abysmal, and their interception rate was garbage. Like, if Charvarius Ward earns his money and puts up 5+ interceptions, like, this team is gonna be just dirty on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, I think Charvarius Ward has to have Charvarius Ward, I mean, based on what we heard so far, he's been looking pretty good. So I'm excited to see how he'll do. I think obviously the obvious choice is Nick Bosa, but Charvarius Ward, he has to have a pretty good season. I agree with you. I think if he does have that 6 to 7 interception season, I think that'll be great for the 49ers. And the Niners really don't get that many interceptions. I mean, that's just not even last year, but the year before that.
They were bottom 10 in turnover
Yeah.
differential last season.
Yeah,
And obviously people are like, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo turned the football, but Lance is going to turn the football over. It is what it is. And we have to have more turnovers on the defensive side of the football.
Yep. Moving on to Rookie of the Year. Who do you think the Rookie of the Year for the 49ers will be? Do you go Drake Jackson, Samuel Womack?
There's a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, so Samuel Womack might be able to get that. I think Drake Jackson, there's a lot of other players on that side of the football as far as the edge work. Is he really going to get the sack totals to get that? Aaron Banks.
Aaron Banks.
Well, he's not a rookie. He's a first-year starter. But man, then fine. We'll go the other guard. Let's go Burford. I think the fact that him starting all 16 games or 17 games and being, if the offensive line is competent, like, he should be Rookie of the Year at that point. Because Womack dominated the preseason, but he was playing against backups and all that kind of stuff like that. Like, and the receiving cores are crazy. I think that Burford, if he starts all 17 games and looks confident, should be Rookie of the Year for the Niners.
Yeah, I was thinking about Drake Jackson or Womack, but I don't know. Womack, I think he'll struggle at times during the season. He's young. I think he'll have his ups and downs throughout the season. So I'll go Burford as well. I mean, Banks obviously is a second year first full-time starter, first year as a full-time starter. So I'll go Burford. I think Burford wasn't bad in the first couple of preseason games. Training camp, he had some good training camp reports. I'll go Burford as well. Womack, the reason why I'm not saying Womack is because I think Womack, he'll have his ups and downs. I think he'll have some nice plays, and I think he'll have some good dimes. And I
think Burford will too.
Yeah, I think Burford will too. But at the same time, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like it's offense. Like, a lot of rookies come into the league, they struggle and they have their ups and downs. They have their learning curves. But I feel like it's harder. It takes longer for a corner than it does for offensive line, and that's not always the case. But I think, just from what I've seen, I think it also sometimes takes longer for a corner than it does for an offensive lineman.
But just like we said, just like we debated with MVP and Trent Williams, like, there's no quantifiable stat for Burford. Like, if Drake Jackson puts up 6 or 7 sacks and looks good the second half of the season, you're not only going to have bias. So I think that both the stats could derail Burford there. And no border sports, I'm not overlooking Mason. I just think that he's preseason pub. If Elijah Mitchell is healthy, he's going to have the rock the whole season. So
Moving on to the last two of the day before we get on out of here. Coach of the year. Do you think it goes to Kyle Shanahan or D'Amico?
coach of the year, if the team is successful, is going to be Greasy.
Greasy. Interesting.
Because the amount of scrutiny that's already on Trey Lance from the national media, from our own fan base, now with Jimmy Garoppolo and the thing, like Greasy's already said, hey, I'm not here to to help him with this throwing motion. I'm here to help him navigate this season and what it's going to take to be a starter in this league, the ups, the downs, the mental part of the game. Like Trey Lance has got the most pressure probably on him of any player in football right now. Like I think I don't know which article it was, but it was the top 20 national football storylines of the season, and they used Trey Lance's photo as the photo for
He's
that
under.
article.
There's a lot of
Like
speaking of
he has the
speaking
most pressure.
speaking of NDSU quarterbacks. Carson Wentz is also under pressure this year.
Yeah, but I think the fact that he's under the most pressure, he's got the most clickbait, not only from our fan base but from the national fan base. And I think that if this season is successful, it'll be Greasy. Will be coach
What's
of the year.
up, Bay Area baller? We are most likely doing a show called Straight Out of the Bay with Rich from Celts Rich, also known as Celts Chronicles, Bay Area baller, and Jay in the Bay on Mondays. We'll be rotating channels. We'll be calling it Straight Out of the Bay. So go check that out. Go subscribe to Bay Area Ballers channel, Jay in the Bay's channel, and Celts Chronicles channel, because we will be doing that starting next Monday, called Straight Out of the Bay. Dave Minu says, how many QBs that sat a year have failed? Jordan Love doesn't count because he stinks.
I have this actually documented somewhere in my chronicles there, and you could do it both ways. Like there's a lot of quarterbacks that were drafted in the top 5 that have failed, and but the only 2 MVPs of the league played all 16 games their first season. So Cam Newton and Matt Ryan were the only MVPs or only quarterbacks to ever win an MVP drafted within the top 5 that within the last 20 seasons. So but failed. Like you have a lot of players that have failed that sat or played less than 8 games or whatever you want to say. There's a lot have, and there's a lot who have failed who started right away. I mean, you look at the positives, right? I mean, Phillip Rivers sat 2 seasons. You have Eli Manning played, I think, 6 games, if I remember my list. I'm trying to find it so I have actual stats, but I think he played 6 games. So he didn't play a full season. So, like, my thing is like, yeah, he sat. It is what it is. But there's the only 2 MVPs to ever be drafted in the top 5, Matt Ryan and Cam Newton. They played all 16 games.
The
So,
Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell debate continues. They won't use Mitchell the whole time because of his health, and he doesn't fumble. They will work guys in as always, and once Mason gets in, he will be the number 2 going forward.
You're just like you're just shitting on Jeff Wilson. Like the fact that Jeff Wilson is number 2 on the depth chart and they trust him. Like Shanahan's always shown that he goes with guys that he can trust. He went with Mitchell because Mozart got injured. Like Mozart was the guy, and the only reason Mitchell was because he got injured. So we're assuming health in all these rankings, and if Mitchell is healthy, Mason won't sniff the field most of the season, guaranteed.
It is really hot. Thank you for bringing it up, Barry Baller. Like, I'm dying right now. Like, it is very hot. It's been hot all day.
I don't want to hear it. I'm in Texas. We had 2 straight months of 105. Suck it up, California. Suck it up.
All right. I know it's probably harder in Texas, but we had PE indoors today because it was so hot that our principal said we can't do PE outside. Like we had restrictions for PE today, but it's been hot all day. Like,
did you guys have sharing circles? Like how much you guys are upset about the heat, and like did you guys hold hands and sing Kumbaya? Because
no, it's not. We were just upset that we weren't allowed to go outside and do PE because that's the only subject that like I personally look forward to. But exactly, we ain't used to like this heat. Like, and I went this thing. I was in Stockton for the 3-day weekend, and Stockton is like 110, 112. It's really hot. And then I went to Vegas in summer, which is also really hot and humid. So like I'm getting more used to it, but like being in the Bay and when it's this hot, like I'm just not used to it because it's usually like 80, 90 or even less than that. It's not usually this hot, but
All right, so here we go. Okay, so I found it. Let's go with quarterbacks here. And now, what would you consider sitting? Because I mean, obviously, Trey Lance played a couple games, so we'll say what, like less than a quarter of a season? Was that
yeah,
considered
yeah.
sitting? All right, so all right, let's scroll down here. So Jamarcus Russell, first season, he only played 4 games. Absolutely garbage. You're looking at, let's see here, Jared Goff. I mean, he played 7 games. That's a little over a quarter, but he was a 2-time Pro Bowler. So, but a lot of people think that he was garbage. But outside of that, there's not a lot of players who sat in that were picked in the top 5 that sat most of the season. Like Trey Lance is top like 3. So, I mean, you could say, hey, Phillip Rivers only played 2 games. He started 0 and he had a great career. And then you have Eli Manning, like, right, he only started 7 games and he won 2 Super Bowls. So, like, I guess you could make that point of that, hey, if you sit, then you're successful. But you also have Jamarcus Russell, who outweighs a lot of that goodness because he was drastically bad.
Jamarcus Russell. Whew, I mean, what an NFL bust? Arguably the biggest NFL bust in NFL history.
You know, and we're lucky now as fans that we have a rookie pay scale, right? Because what would a top 3 pick in this day and age cost the Niners? Like Trey Lance would have been making what, 40 million last year? Like, because Sam Bradford made a crap ton of money. He was a top 5 quarterback without even taking a
Yeah.
snap. Like that's crazy.
Yep. Well, that basically wraps up the show for today. Chardal also says I'm not used to it being this hot in the Bay Area. I'm not used to it either. I mean, Randon's probably used to it because he lives in Texas, so it's hot. Stockton is always hot. I agree. I go to Stockton because my cousins live there. I went over the summer. I go there a lot. It's always hot. Literally, it could be like 10 o'clock at night and it'll be hot. And you like need the fan and the AC on. It's always hot in Stockton. Um, but that basically wraps up the show. If you haven't already subscribed to Randon's channel, go check out his channel, Cerberus Sports Talk. Go subscribe to the channel. Go check out maybe some old videos. Hopefully, he'll post some new content on there. Go follow Randon on Twitter if you haven't already. That link is also in the description at Rando Commando 24, I think it is. Yeah.
Rando Commando 24, yeah.
Yeah. And then go check if you're a hockey fan. If you like hockey and you like the LA Kings, or if you don't like the LA Kings and you're just a hockey fan, go check out Hockey Royalty Podcast. The link tree is in the description. Twitter, YouTube, the podcast, wherever you want to find your podcast. The link tree is there. Go check out Hockey Royalty Podcast. YouTube, Twitter, and Hockey Royalty, all in the description. So go check them out in the description. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please go do so. It would be greatly appreciated. Like this video. I appreciate everybody for watching. Shardal, Barry a Baller, David McNew, Brian Club, my amazing moderators. Thank you for joining me again, Randon. When next time we talk, it'll be after 49ers football game. So that'll be nice. We'll have some topics.
Some actual stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we'll have some actual stuff to talk about. But that basically wraps up the show. Thank you, No Border Sports. Go check out their channel. Also, if you haven't already, Waruna and Crypto Ryan, go check out their channel. Brian once again says, Randon, get a residency hat. And I'll think about subscribing a little.
Hey, if you don't want good hockey content, then you're missing out because we got some good stuff.
All right. Football's 5 days away. Thursday is obviously the Bills and Rams games. Looking forward to that. Football's back, guys. Football's officially back. It's week 1. I'll see you next Tuesday, Randon. Peace. Later, everyone.